there we go. Okay.
All right.
Back.
Welcome to. Should we say it together?
Oh yeah.
In unison?
1, 2, 3.
That happened.
I'm Arash.
I'm Max.
And today we're going to talk about history, like always. But actually, before this, we're actually just talking about just some misogynist comments. No big deal. We're just talking about Daisy Ridley and Felicity Jones and how they're both kind of rodent-y looking.
Yeah.
And
I maintain that Daisy Ridley has a chipmunky charm, whereas Felicity Jones is more mousy, which is less attractive.
More like a nibbling kind of mouse, like a mouse you really hit with like a tennis racket. Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Like with
no offense to that.
like the apples when you throw them at the tennis.
Yeah,
racket.
it's
just like
it
just explodes everywhere. So sorry, Felicity Jones, if you're a fan.
Yeah, no, I love Rogue One. No, but also it's like in history, everyone was like so malnourished. They all just looked really ratty. Like, if you look at like all those like French portraits of like any of those like Louis, all the Louis were just rat face. The big long nose, really rat teeth coming out of their like. Their teeth are so big, it comes out of their mouth. It's like fangs. Kind of. It's weird. Yeah, ratty people. But I think as we got like better diets, and then we looked better.
Started to look more canine.
Yeah. Then now there's like wolf-looking people. There's like horse-looking people.
We were canified.
Yeah, we were Yeah. I don't know. This is all just theory, though. So.
Yeah.
Anyway, what's up? Happy holidays. This is right before the new year, I guess. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Happy 2020.
Right. Yeah. A new decade in history. Do you have anything you want to mark down as a historic moment from the last decade?
From the last decade?
Yeah. Anything?
I don't know. When was 9/11? I can't.
No, that's not even. You know what? That's interesting. There has not really been a catastrophic event in the U.S. to match that.
No.
In this decade. Maybe in this decade.
No. Maybe the internment camps. Recently. Yeah.
Like creeping fascism, but there hasn't been like full tank.
Yeah.
Tanks
Later they'll be like, where were all the good Americans?
Yeah, they were podcasting.
They were podcasting.
Yeah. Honestly, I was wondering about that. I was like really narcissist. I think about where like, what if I just start to really hit my stride with comedy? It's all going well, and then I get sent to like a Trump internment camp. Yeah. And it like kills my career. That would suck.
I'll tell them I'm Jewish so I can go too.
Like, yeah, can you still podcast in a concentration camp?
I doubt it.
You can't do that. They're probably not going to let us take it in a recorder.
They'll probably get mad, get annoyed by us saying, we're bored.
Yeah, we're bored. It's like, all right, just let these guys podcast. Yeah. Like,
oh, come on, we're bored.
Just don't mention the conditions of the camp.
Yeah.
You can still do comedy in here. Yeah.
Oh, there's a lot of work to do, but you've got machines now that can do it.
Oh, like a concentration camp comedy? You're like, man, what is with the food in this place? God,
we've got like a wooden spoon we stole for the microphone.
Yeah, it's like, man, you ever notice these guards? A little rude.
Yeah, a little rude.
Yeah, God. I just asked for like a non-maggoty meal. They were like, get out of here.
To be perfectly frank, rude guards.
And frank.
Yeah.
And frank.
Yeah.
No, she would be like our template. Yeah. Shout out to her.
She'll be like the new Che, and we'll wear her on T-shirts and stuff. There'll be resistance.
I'm surprised people don't.
She ought to be. She ought to be a resistance. The face of the resistance.
That's the thing, is that some people in the camps will be actually doing meaningful shit, like being resistance fighters. And we'll just be being like meaningless podcasters. Yeah. You're like, hey guys, you want to pick up some guns and shoot these Nazis? Like, we'll be there in a second, dude. Just recording.
Oh, dude, pick up a gun and fight. We're a member of the commentariat. Actually.
There's a proletariat and there's a commentariat.
Yeah.
All right, we don't dabble with this fighting.
Yeah. We're what you call analysts.
Yes.
Idea men.
We're still workers of the mind. Yeah, we do thinking. That's our labor.
We're not really picker-uppers of rifles or anything of the sort.
It's like you see those like Soviet statues of like the really buff worker with like the hammer and like the buff lady with the hammer and then like with the sickle, but like we're just frail, like little bony guys, like a little microphone.
Rosie the Riveter, but with like a drone that she's gonna throw like a paper airplane.
Yeah. I know, we really are going to be pansies in the revolution. That's
they'll probably shoot us just for ineptness.
Yeah, but
ineptitude.
One because we're like enemies of the state. Two because we're not funny. And
By then the humor will have changed so much with the younger generations because the rapidly advancing technology is making it so their brains are so much different from ours.
Oh my god!
That they just don't get our comedy. So we're just
Yeah, like no one's gonna watch anything for an hour. It's gonna be crazy. It's gonna be like you just ingest like a weird, like you just have like a cube and it like takes a snapshot and you just then you're just a Nazi. Like it's that fast. Like,
We're just these giggling, cheeky idiots. Like in the back of the rally, there's everybody's got a beret, and then there's this speaker who's talking quietly so that the surveillance recorders won't pick him up, and then we're heckling.
I wonder. I bet every revolutionary movement's always had the funny guy, like the funny Black Panther.
Yeah.
Where like he's just like, man, he's FBI. Just so I can catch him.
The wild card.
Yeah, the wild card guy.
Yeah, but he's like they put up with it because he's the best fighter too.
Yeah, exactly.
He's just like.
Yeah, the funniest Black Panther, funniest Bolshevik. Yeah, underrated character. Yeah. It's hard. Yeah, that's what sucks. Is like I feel like I'm a political guy, but it seems like all those political people in history are very serious. Never had any time to like have a laugh.
No,
Yeah.
I mean there were some that did. Like Peter the Great was supposed to be a goofy man. He was basically the Wolf of Wall Street of that time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, in Wolf of Wall Street, he exploits the dwarves, the little people for.
Oh yeah, he's just taking Percocets and going carriage rides.
Yeah, that's
crazy.
what Peter the Great called him. He called him his dwarves.
Anyway, what's on the docket?
He was a student of Tolkien. Today I wanted to talk about Gore Vidal.
Hell yeah! No, I did a little bit of research on some stuff, but because of the holidays, I actually didn't have to do that much.
Yeah.
But instead of research and facts, I have hypothetical questions, which is the next best thing.
Right.
So,
I could go on forever. If you think you don't have that much to talk about, you want to go first.
Oh, that's fine. I do want to go first.
Yeah, we could do that.
This? Okay, hell yeah. Okay, let's do it.
So first, I wanted to start by arguing that Gore Vidal, any discussion of Gore Vidal is a discussion of history because he represents human progress. In a sense, like he was one of the first people to be unabashedly socially liberal as we see it today. Like he was pro-abortion.
Oh, yeah.
He was
like also just for these idiots. Like what time period is this?
So he was most active in the 50s through 90s.
Oh, okay. Nice.
But he was pro women's liberation. He was pro trans.
He was American, right?
American guy.
Nice.
So he basically the key to Vidal, I think, is his political understanding. What he said was he wanted to be a politician all his life. He wanted to be president. What he said was about being a bad politician because he ran and lost.
He ran for president?
Yeah, well, he ran for Congress and he lost to Kennedy, I think.
Oh shit!
But
especially with that name, I don't think anybody was ready for a guy named Gore Vidal to be anything in the U.S.
Also, he was extremely famous as a polemicist and contrarian.
Okay, he was on talk shows with like his suit, smoking and like debating shit. Yeah.
Yeah, and he just had that upperclassman's drawl, and people didn't trust him because he was so intelligent, just insidiously smart, and his grandfather, Thomas Pryor Gore, was one of the people who founded Oklahoma, I guess, and he was the senator from Oklahoma for most of his adult life.
Whoa, okay.
He was blind, and he always changed the story.
Sorry, Gore Vidal was blind or his dad?
His dad was blind.
Oh,
his grandpa, who he lived with.
Okay.
Because his dad was busy being the Minister of Aviation for Roosevelt.
So he comes from like pretty landed family.
Yeah.
I think the Vidals are like big. Okay.
I mean, well, it's more the.
Okay, I'm sorry. This is how dumb I thought this whole time he was like a foreigner. I was imagining like a tiny Polish man just running. Okay. And
he had a very.
So he had a dynastic family. Okay.
Yeah, and he had this amazing baritone transatlantic voice.
Oh, I love that.
He would always talk like this, and then he would very strong voice. And even though he was gay, he looked down upon gay people who were effeminate. Like he thought he used the F word with them. He called them fags.
Jesus, so he was the first top.
He was top of his. Somebody said Gore Vidal liked fucking rather than being fucked. Is that because he was afraid of venereal disease? And then a friend of his said no, because he was Gore Vidal.
Damn. Okay. So he's a very confident. That's I can't comprehend. That's such early like homophobic.
No,
It's very weird.
but well,
yeah.
he'd just to be shocking, like in essays where he talked about gentrification pushing out black people and how they're marginalized and gay people are marginalized, he called them by the slurs.
Holy
the whole essay.
shit.
Yeah, just because he wanted to get in your head. He was a big sensationalist, and he just wanted to shock America into doing what he thought was best.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, he was an interesting character, and he's, I think, the exact opposite of like Noam Chomsky's polemical style, whereas Noam Chomsky's like purposefully boring in speeches. He thinks you should pay attention to just what he says
Just
and
the
not to
point.
his style or
He has no
personality.
flavor to his language.
Yeah.
It's just like, war is bad. That's like all, okay.
Yeah, I mean, he has
That
good
makes sense.
sentence structure, but it's all utilitarian.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas Gore sought utility by being sort of flashy in a way, and he really focused on the art and the
But
structure
that's
of
how
an
you're supposed to give a
essay.
speech. All the good speech people or whatever, they always have like no one gets a following by being like, here
Yeah.
it is. Here's the boilerplate thing. It's
Mhm.
like also like like what's his face, the worst man of all time, Hitler. Good orator. Yeah, he was good at the
Yeah, good at public speech.
yeah. Or Obama.
Who had the
Yeah.
joke? Where they said, There's only one common feature between Obama and Hitler. They're both great public speakers.
Yeah.
I can't remember who
That's
said that.
That's a really good skill. It's like so hard. 'Cause-
Yeah.
Well, also like good writing too. You have to be like, it's hard to write an essay. It's like like someone has this joke that's like Karl Marx. Like imagine you wrote an essay on economics, then people found it and like started murdering people.
Yeah.
Doing all this.
Well,
Yeah, that's awesome. That's
Speech
good.
making and argument have kind of rhythms to it because
make
really
your
good
points.
debaters, especially
Yeah.
if there's no moderator, if it's just conversational, will pause in places where you can't really. They'll pause to take a breath in places where they're obviously not done. Like they won't take a breath
Still
after a
making their
sentence.
point.
They'll be in the middle of a thought. It's really interesting. They'll be like,
Wait, can you demonstrate? Yeah, what's a good? Let's do a speech. Let's say Protestants are
yeah.
cowards or something.
And
yeah.
the problem with Protestants
Yeah.
is that they'll take a breath
They're-
like that. But they'll.
Oh, so it's all strategic breath.
Yeah,
Like,
strategic
the problem
breath.
with Protestants they're cowards. Yeah, and everyone's like,
And they
yeah.
do it for emphasis too. Like it's so nobody can really override them without seeming like a douchebag.
That's funny.
And for emphasis.
I've seen musicians hack that. Like I saw like Vampire Weekend live, and they always do that song, like speech before the song, like we wrote this in Greenwich Village
Yeah.
in 2013, and it's about like just fucking get to the point.
Yeah.
What are you doing? Yeah.
Yeah.
I hate it. A good band.
Good band.
Anyway, sorry.
Oh, you're good.
Okay, so basically like
Yeah, his family
yeah.
landed. His dad. I mean, it was more the Gores that were the power.
Gores.
I mean, I'm pretty sure his dad, Jean Vidal, who was close with Roosevelt, got there by being married to the Gores.
Is he related to Al Gore?
Yes.
Oh shit.
He called him little cousin Albert.
Damn. So, but how come Al Gore's all like kind of the runt of the family? Yeah,
Well, Gore Vidal didn't like him much either. He said, "Well,
Yeah.
I preferred Albert Senior." He's like, "Oh, little Albert."
Also, it's weird. Gore Vidal, then Al Gore. Why did they switch the names? Is it like Gore
well,
Vidal?
so he was
Is this-
born Eugene Luther Gore Vidal,
Oh.
and then he
okay,
decided
okay.
to cut out the Christian names. 1, because he despised Christianity, and 2, because the name was too long. 3, because his dad was also named Eugene.
Oh shit. Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
So he thought he thought an author ought to have a name no longer than 4 syllables. So he
Yeah, it's like the perfect name. It's like the perfect stage name. It's amazing. Yeah.
But they're like his 2 surnames, basically, Gore Vidal.
Oh.
it's his mother's maiden name.
Okay, I
Yeah.
see. That makes sense.
But people just called him Gore all his life.
That's
But
a cool name.
yeah, so he made that decision when he was 19 to cut the names off.
Damn. Okay.
Yeah, but he immediately gained success too with a book that was supposed to be like kind of Hemingway ripoffy called Willowa about a naval ship in World War II coming under a storm.
That is very. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a man's book.
Yeah.
Yeah. This book will make you a man. Yeah. Back then, men just liked tales about the sea and like hardships on the sea. Anything with the sea and like
I
open
know.
and like pulling a rope in a storm. That's like every
Pulling a
young
rope.
man's novel. It's just like yeah.
Well, it's very well
Yeah.
explained in the beginning of Moby Dick. He says, "What young man has not had dreams of going to the sea? Why is it that every path on a mountain leads to water in one form or another? Why is it that?"
It's like a rite of passage. Like you're
Yeah.
supposed to do. Okay, that makes sense. Maybe that's the problem of their generation. None of us have been in shipwrecks or like been eaten by a whale or something. Like, we don't have enough. We don't have enough shipwreck stories.
This is kind of an aside, but I love that the Emperor Nero, I think it was him, tried to kill his mother with a planned shipwreck.
Damn, that's
failed. Yeah.
Well, how do you even do that? How do you plan he just like put them on course into like a shitty...
I think she had more power than he wanted her to have, so he just decided he'd kill her with a planned shipwreck.
Damn.
It was him or Caligula. I get them mixed.
Those Greek? No, those Romans. Sorry.
Yeah.
That's crazy. How do you? It's like, Mom, I got you tickets to this cruise, and she's like, oh, sweetie. Oh,
yeah, and she took one of her girlfriends, and the girlfriend was killed, I guess. Or she took one of her lady friends, and she died.
I can't imagine being on like a Roman galley or something.
Yeah.
It looks like it sucks.
Yeah.
If you hit like one rock, or like you just hit like a stray seal that's like big enough, you can sink.
Yeah. It was fucked up.
Anyway, sorry. What were we talking?
Oh, you're good. The people have told me the thing they like best about this is the tangents we go on.
Yeah.
So really, this ought to be an excuse for tangents.
I should have one more Roman Greek story.
Yeah.
It's about pirates, which was like, but apparently like the way, I think it was either the Greeks or the Persians, the way they dealt with pirates, they cut off their arms and then put a rope through all their shoulders, pretty much. They strung them like popcorn, on a string, and just like a rope, like strung them across the docks. It's fucking disgusting.
That reminds me, there's a brilliant short story. I think the best short story of George Saunders, who I think is the best short story writer right now, called The Semplica Girl Diaries, which you can find in his collection 10th of December. But the Semplica girls are women from third world countries who are shipped here just to be strung together with like this laser, but through their heads.
What?
Just to be like pretty, and they're like dressed in robes in people's yards, and then it's about this guy who thinks that's a status symbol. It's his diary, and he's saying, "I want a set of Semplica girls for my house," and then it's a weird, strange story that took him.
Wait, so they're all like a bunch of brainwashed girls that just are in your house?
I think they leave that ambiguous whether they're brainwashed. But
scary.
You got to read it. It's actually a very, very funny story, and it ends up being heartwarming. But
man.
It's a very silly story too. But it took him 14 years to write because he thought it would be a novel. And
that always makes me feel better about myself.
Yeah.
Like you know what? It took him 14 years.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah.
And he worked on it a lot.
Yeah.
But he thought it would be a novel, so he wrote like hundreds of pages and then cut it down to I think 20.
Oh yeah, no, I feel better about my peanut joke now.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I got 12 years.
He got 12 years.
Yeah.
Gary Goldman was talking about how there was the Trader Joe's story. It was just in its germinal phase when he rolled it out first of all, and then it didn't get a laugh at all. And then he got off stage, and then someone came up to him and said, "I know it didn't get a laugh, but there's something there." And then he felt so empowered by that he worked on it for 7 years, and it finally was done.
That's also what every artist needs, is a catalyst. You always need someone to be like, listen, there's something in there. And then because they said that, then you can't stop thinking about it. And then that probably happens a lot, where like someone told Homer, like, that Iliad shit that bombed, like, there's something to that Iliad. If you just keep working on it, it'll pan out. Just believe me. He's like,
artists by nature have zero self-esteem.
Yeah, we all need someone to like tell us. We all need someone drunk to be like, hey man, yeah. Mm-hmm. He's like, then Homer was like, man, I should go back and revisit those. Maybe if Helen was the like, I don't know.
I mean, the most effective artists are able to have like a delayed release of narcissism. They're able to kind of control how it comes out, but you kind of need it.
Yeah.
You kind of need some narcissism.
But also back then, it was all about your magnum opus, because that's like when you could die. Like once you write your magnum opus, then you just drop that on the book that you wrote.
Yeah. And
then they find you on your desk.
Everyone's seeking a masterpiece now. Artists usually see it as just another job, and then they just like roll out the same thing over and over. Whereas before you had a patron or something like that, so you could work on something for 30 years.
Isn't that great? It just had a dude we talked about this. You just had a dude paying you who just believes in you so much.
I know.
That's the weirdest shit I've ever heard of. Just a guy who's like, yeah, dude, just stay in my castle and paint. for years for the rest of your life.
I'm thinking about. I want to write just one short story that shows what I can do and just send it around to Richens. And being like, I'm also a good cleaner.
I'm great with kids. I'm awesome. Yeah.
I will clean. I will.
It really shows that artists have always just been that disrespected.
Yeah.
That we always need some idiot to like host us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's so funny. When we're talking with Gore Vidal.
Yeah. So
sorry. Okay.
So he's related. Yeah, the Gores. He's also related to Jimmy Carter.
Oh, okay.
Or he was.
He's really like an American guy.
Yeah, very American.
America. Okay, yeah.
And then he said, "America is my subject." And then, so he wrote, historical novels about America. The best that I've read is Burr, which is the story from Burr's perspective of the killing of Hamilton. And he makes speculations in that historians actually came to believe later.
Oh shit! Okay.
Yeah, he said that he thought.
I actually don't know much about the Burr Hamilton. Is that?
It's interesting. Well,
some founding father drama.
If you read that and you read the actual letters back and forth between Aaron Burr and Hamilton, you come out on Burr's side. You really.
What was it?
do.
Can you just give it a rundown? It was like a mean text where he's like.
Well, they were political rivals for a long time. I mean, Hamilton was better liked by Washington, and Burr was kind of bitter about it, but kind of he was a good politician, so he kept it mum. So they had a feud, an ongoing feud, and then you can see in their letters that Hamilton. Aaron Burr writes a public letter to Hamilton saying, like, I heard you said something about me at a party or something like that. I can speculate as to what you said, but I think I'd like to hear it from you. And it's just a very to the point, like truncated sentences, like very simple language, very unassuming, humble. And he was mad, of course. And then you have Hamilton coming in with all this flowery language, and he says nothing the whole time, basically. It's
he really did say, like, hey, I heard you were talking shit, then Hamilton was like, no, I wasn't.
He was a real bitch about it, and he was kind of evading the question. He was like, well, I suppose if you... that sort of
So how do you feel about Lin-Manuel Miranda's Hamilton?
I fucking hate it.
Yeah, he can take these Miranda rights and shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
That's what I think. I hate him so much.
Yeah, Miranda rights just refers to all the pussy he gets.
Yeah.
He has like the Lord's right of sleeping with a bride before the marriage.
Oh, what is that called? Like prima nocta?
Yeah.
I've always wanted to go to someone's wedding and just yell that, like, I declare prima nocta. Yeah.
I claim the right. Yeah, Lin-Manuel Miranda has that.
Yeah, he can go to any Broadway ticket holder's house and just declare prima nocta.
I thought you were going to say brothel, and I was really excited.
Brothel?
You can go to any brothel.
Prima nocta.
Yeah.
Oh, man, that's so funny.
But so Gore Vidal speculates in the novel that what Hamilton said about Aaron Burr was that he was incestuous with his only daughter.
What?
Yeah, and so this
That's
was
like high slander.
Yes, yeah, and it was a very easy to believe rumor for people at that time because
did he what evidence?
Well, I'll tell you.
Okay.
Aaron Burr, his daughter Theodosia was very intelligent, and then Aaron Burr was one of the first people to say it was like Montaigne before him in the 1500s, and then Aaron Burr way later, but like. He said, I know that if you bring a woman up and educate her the same as a man, she'll be as smart as a man. Mm-hmm. And he did, and she was. And then they would send each other letters back and forth that were the sort of letters like you'd see from a very close father and son back then. Yeah. Complete with like, he'd tell her like, he's like, yeah, I had an affair with this lady and now I'm sad and things like that, where they were just very open.
Oh, okay.
But and then it's public that they were that close, and Hamilton took advantage of it. But Burr was extremely fond and loved his daughter so much, and then she was actually he was on a ship that was overtaken by pirates. She was never seen again.
She was.
Yeah.
Oh no.
And then Hamilton says the shit after his. It may have been before, I can't remember, but I'm pretty sure it was after his daughter had been killed by pirates or taken in prisoner. And, and he said, I'm going to fucking shoot you. and then he took him out to an island and he shot him.
Burr killed Hamilton.
Yeah.
What, did they have a duel?
Yeah, they had a duel.
Good for Burr, dude.
Yeah.
Fuck Hamilton.
It said that Hamilton fired in the air. He just like wasted his shot, and then Burr had second shot, so he just shot him in the fucking chest.
That's so funny, man.
Yeah, he just like oh good, all right.
Yeah. Oh, all right.
He blew him away.
What an asshole, dude.
Yeah.
Like, imagine if it happened now. That'd be horrible.
Yeah. No, you know, violence.
Also good for Burr for being progressive and like raising his daughters and like educating.
I know.
Yeah, that's
and then
cool.
he's just vilified now everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really. And in the novel, it talks about that, where Burr realizes that by shooting in the air, Hamilton cemented his place in history. And it's this beautiful, poetic letdown at the end, this just anticlimax. This gorgeously structured anticlimax. It's a good novel.
Damn, okay. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I actually didn't know the whole story, because I was wondering, like, why does everyone care about this Hamilton guy?
Yeah.
Because all I know about him is, like, he was in like there was like a hurricane, and then he wrote a poem about it.
Yeah.
And then it's like, his town sent him to be educated and shit. That's all I know.
Yeah, and the play doesn't really focus on his, like, foreign upbringing so much. It should, because he was just, like, he was half, I think, Creole, one of the island native tribes.
Yeah, I think so. He was a Caribbean, I think, right?
Yeah, and he was just a poor kid. Like, I think his mother might have been a prostitute or something like that. And then he wrote a poem, and somebody said, "This is a good poem."
Yeah.
And patronized him. So
once again, the fucking patrons,
yeah.
man. Yeah. God,
oh.
this really sounds like a Twitter beef, like, now.
I know.
Like, oh, you fuck your daughter, dude. And, like, then they, like, get in a fist fight, and, like, Hamilton, like, is drunk, and Bird punches him in the face, and he, like, falls onto a chair.
No, but like, I challenge anyone listening to this to think of that having happened to them, not having your wife around anymore, all your love being staked on this person who dies, or just is imprisoned and tortured for the rest of her life, and you have no idea.
By pirates.
Pirates.
And then a guy makes fun
and then a guy just, like, is spreading rumors about you because he doesn't like you, about you having fucked your daughter.
Jesus.
Like, would you kill that man?
Wait, so Hamilton's famous for writing the Constitution?
Well, he had a hand in writing it, but Madison, and then I think a couple other guys, I can't remember their names. But they wrote the Federalist Papers, which are defenses of the Constitution.
Right.
And then Hamilton's are just unreadable. He's just got that flowery language, and it's not flowery in like a vivid way either, like Nabokov. It's very, like, muddled and constipated.
Well, I'm trying to imagine, like, what a 16-year-old poet's writing would be like. It's all like, it's like Nirvana lyrics. It's like, oh, you make me sad. Your taxes are lame. I don't like your empire.
I don't like your empire.
Your red coat uniform is dumb. And like, oh, bravo, Hamilton. Yeah. The young kid is doing it. It's like, shut up. This guy sucks.
It was just disgusting. How I don't know, but he was this in the musical. Sorry, a little air bubble.
Oh, you're good.
I had that surgery.
We're so excited. We have, like, I have some Tums. If you want to
no. It's just like the surgery I had makes it so that if I don't burp very well, so it'll just come up every so often, which has never happened on stage really. I don't know why.
That sounds like a very medieval disease. Like, he had bubbles in his throat.
He had bubbles.
Like Satan is in his throat. Yeah.
The mean squires called him Bubblemeister.
Yeah, no, honestly, Gore Vidal sounds cool. He's just very, like, he's like a firebrand. He's just telling it like
this consuming flame. Damn. And he was this. He worked all the time. He wrote like over 30 books, I think. He wrote over 200 novels.
Well, show this book. He wrote this thing.
Yeah, he wrote over 200 essays. This is probably my favorite book, United States Essays 1952 through 1992.
Nice.
But he just wrote on everything. He wrote about politics, literature, history. He was called they call him a satirist, novelist, public speaker, public intellectual, historian, enfant terrible.
Infant terrible.
Yeah, and he was brilliant. He was one of the most brilliant people of the last century, and he was, I think, the person who took on the mantle of George Orwell as an essayist. I think, because he had this amazing political conjectural ability, like Orwell did, where they could just like Orwell wrote 1980. I could talk forever about it. Shit. I don't know. I'm like, well, just stop me at one point, and then I'll continue.
No, it's all good. Maybe get to your hottest Gore Vidal thing.
Oh yeah. I don't know. It's all so exciting that it like gets boring.
I think we have time. What are we at?
Yeah,
we have time. We're good. Yeah, no, keep.
But it just everything he did and said was so exciting that it becomes boring after a time. Almost. Yeah. So but it was just on the same level of genius and excitement. He was just very angry, this angry spirit, and he was angry to the end.
That's always the best.
Yeah, he had this famous feud with William F. Buckley, who's the father of modern conservatism. Gore Vidal, even though they had those debates which changed television and gave us shows like Hardball, Hard Talk.
Hard Talk, yeah.
Yeah, those Hard Talk shows where they're just like little snippets of argument where nobody says much.
So this is pre-Talking Heads, like when they actually had meaning to it, not just a bunch of people yelling on a screen with like 6 windows of like people yelling. Yeah.
I mean, at the time, ABC was a negligible network. Like there was NBC and CBS and ABC, I believe, and they said ABC was third only because there was no fourth network. They were just shitty and falling apart, and so they wanted to get themselves out of that morass. So they hired William F. Buckley and Gore Vidal to argue during the 1968, I think it was 68, Republican and Democratic convention.
So like really controversial time too.
Yeah.
That's like a big. Wasn't Buckley also? Wasn't he kind of the fucked up guy who had like No, I'm thinking of the governor who was like he was like passing like really racist laws, like really anti-civil rights.
He wasn't. He I don't think he was ever.
Maybe I'm thinking
in
the wrong
office.
guy. Okay, wrong guy. Okay.
But he founded the magazine National Review, which is still around, and it's just espousing, Reaganist policies. He was like Reagan's pet. He was always around. He
was like super pre-Reagan. Like this is okay.
There's I can't remember who it is. It might have been Christopher Hitchens who called somebody a pundit that never need dine alone, because he was just he said that about I can't remember his name. Anyway, I'll think of it later.
Oh, he's just bought and paid for by everybody. Okay.
Basically. But
so Gore Vidal just destroyed him on TV?
Gore Vidal, he admitted to setting a trap for Buckley. I mean, that's a phrase that's like pulled from an interview in the big documentary about them, Best of Enemies. But watch it; it's great. He just wrote witticisms to say at Buckley beforehand. He wrote roasts.
He wrote roasts.
Yeah, he was like the he was so funny.
What a genius! Yeah,
he had notes and notes and notes of mean things to say. He wrote like William F. Buckley is the Marie Antoinette of the Republican Party. And he was always to the right and always in the wrong, and he wrote all these witticisms.
That's fucking hilarious.
Yeah, no, he was great,
dude.
And then there was this big controversy because they were like the American people were in awe at these two elites just coming at each other, and then seemingly really intelligently. If you really look at what Buckley was saying, it was very roundabout, and he had a hard time getting it out, but.
No, I sort of imagine him as I'm not sure what he looks like, but I imagine a very flabbergasted, fat Southern gentleman.
No,
just like do the clay, and he's just like.
Well, he had a voice like this.
That's a good far right voice.
Yeah, and he would always go, and he would talk like that. Well, Gore Vidal said all the Buckley children were sent to England for school, hoping that they would pick up the English accent. Bill's didn't quite take.
That's funny. Yeah. Just saying, like, you sound like a moron.
Yeah.
That's so funny. What's so funny is they're supposed to have this like high political debate, and he's just like, your voice is stupid.
Yeah, it's just you have this dumb voice. And then but he just like wanted to expose Buckley is what he wanted to do. He called out Buckley for being pro like nuclear weapon basically everywhere. And then Buckley on air like denied it, and Gore was like, I'll have the notes next time, but you did say. And But he got famous because Gore had this amazing ability up until later in life where he went a little nuts. To
As
be
they all do.
to be perfectly zen while people were insulting him. He just like put his hand on his lip and just listen quietly, and then while Buckley said incorrect things, and then he'll just wait. He never interrupted, and he'd just pipe up. He might have interrupted, but very seldom. And then he said the Buckley started talking about the Nazi, and then Gore said, the only pro or crypto Nazi I can think of is yourself. Failing that, and then Buckley said, listen, you queer.
Really?
Yeah, he said on television, live television, he said, listen, you queer, stop calling me a crypto Nazi, or I'll sock you in the goddamn face and you'll stay plastered. And then,
wow.
And then
You broke him though. He really looked like an idiot.
He blew his mind, is what it was.
So
is what was said.
funny. Listen, you queer.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah, he got crazy.
Oh my god.
And you should look it up and watch his face just contort in rage. He said he like did that thing with his jaw, moves it back and forth like his jaw was so tense. He goes, listen, you queer. Stop calling me. It's
his
amazing.
jowls are just flopping at like insane rates. Yeah.
Well, he was a pretty fit.
Oh, okay.
fella.
Okay. That's a scary conservative when they're actually in good shape. Usually they're like fat and dumpy.
Yeah.
And you're like, they're just like very eggy, egg shaped. I could outrun this man.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
he definitely could have beat the shit out of Gore Vidal.
Well, that's always the best. It's like a nerd who like knows the guy can beat the shit out of him, and he's just still making him really angry.
Yeah, and the best part was when while he was saying this, like, listen, you queer, and then Gore Vidal just doesn't break. He's like, no, Bill.
No, come on, man. No, don't embarrass yourself here, Bill. That's so funny.
It's like he just puts his hand out. Now, Bill.
Jesus, what a champ. That's amazing.
But he just blew his mind. It was so funny. But he just egged him on the whole time. And then Gore wrote an essay about it afterwards because William F. Buckley wrote an essay about kind of explaining why he went nuts. And then, which is the wrong thing to do. Because
like a big apology letter or something.
Nope. He was very unapologetic, and then pretty much.
I said, like, once again, if this happened now, it'd be like on Twitter. It would have a bunch of big tweet thread of like, here's what happened on Fox the other day. I called Gore Vidal a queer, and like, but I stand by what I said. And then Gore like retweets it and comments like, "Lol, idiot." Yeah.
But William F. Buckley wasn't a very practiced writer. He might have been good if he did it much, but he didn't. And the essay was the wrong place to go to take on Vidal.
A guy who just write the shit around you, just write circles around.
And Gore Vidal was the master of the essay. He had mastered the essay by that point because he wrote a book which was the first popular novel to treat homosexuality as a perfectly normal phenomenon.
Oh, what's the name of it?
City and the Pillar.
Oh, okay.
The City and the Pillar. Yeah. So he wrote that, and he stopped being reviewed everywhere. So he had to write essays to make a living, and then he just became this force. But so he wrote that essay, and then Gore wrote an essay called "On Experiencing William F. Buckley," and it began.
It's like, this just happened to me. It's like this happened. Yeah.
On experience.
That's such a funny title.
I know. And then he was the funniest man. He said during the 1968 Republican Convention, I came up against William F. Buckley, and the little cuckoo in his the door with the little cuckoo inside opened, and out sprang a song, and then he said, which I prefer people, preferably millions of people, to hear.
He's just saying like you're just a lunatic.
Yeah.
Jesus, that's so funny.
And then he's
the father of conservatism, this guy.
I know,
this is so funny.
Some of his homophobia came out then. Some of his he hated that he was gay, but And then he started, but it was pretty funny because he insinuated very subtly that William F. Buckley was gay throughout the essay.
He's like, he was licking his lips while I was looking at me.
In Burr, he had just a petty representation of William F. Buckley, who said his honking voice can often be heard, and
He called him a honky. Basically, he's a honky.
Well, he had that voice. He's like, "Gone."
Yeah, well, yeah, he has like the stereotypical like what black comedians do like a white voice. That's like what I imagine he sounds like. Well, I don't think that is not.
Yeah.
Well,
pretty much.
Here, chap, I don't. Yeah.
It was like his honking goose-like voice
Honking goose.
could often be heard in the backs of parlors where he's seduced the local boys or something like that. And then there is a footnote, and it said this portrayal absolutely cannot be said to.
That's so funny.
To be similar to anyone now living or ever having lived or something like that.
He's always jabbing. He's always. That's so funny.
It was always just.
Good for him. What a troll.
Yeah.
I love him.
Yeah. Another key to him is that he was very belligerent, and he hated it. If he was challenged, he just wanted to.
He had to like win.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. No, it sucks too because like the whole like self-hating, like he was gay but he was self-hating. That's kind of sad. Like that's what always makes me sad about the '60s. Like everyone was like they were progressive like half of the time, but then the rest of them was backwards. It was like crazy paradox.
Yeah.
Like he's like pretty progressive guy, but then he's like, I hate myself. I'm an F word. Like it's like it's just. Poor guy.
He was a very interesting psychological profile.
Yeah, dude, it's weird.
Very interesting.
What's the whole thing with like tons of those politicians from back then? It was very weird. Like they were this close to being like super. But back then that was really progressive back then. So
yes, but I mean there's video of Gore arguing with a conservative talk show host at the time. And then he said the difference between a heterosexual and a homosexual is about the difference between someone who has green eyes and someone who has blue eyes. And the talk show host says, "Who says so?" And he says, "I say so."
I say. That's so funny.
Yeah,
good for him.
He had sharpness, and I think a lot of the really sharp wits, are so at the expense of depth, in some ways.
Oh, what do you mean, the expense of depth?
His novels weren't quite as deep as they ought to have been. They were pretty surface level intelligent. I think there's something where the kind of mind that's very deliberative and takes a long time to speak, and I wish I were that type of person.
I wish I had that too. I've always envied that where like because we were talking, like you talk to him and he just thinks and then he responds.
Yeah.
If I was debating William Buckley, whatever, I would just be immediately breaking down and like blabbering. I don't think I would have a cohesive. He would just be like, "Well, listen here, you queer." I'm like, "Oh, come on, no." Just like, I'm trying.
And Gore Vidal was always ready. That's always awesome. Ready with something. And I think that's a sign of a person who really is pretty set in what they think, because they're
nice.
It's like a trap. It's like, I already think this, so blah.
Yeah, man, I got you. Yeah.
But my grandpa talks about one of his bosses when he worked for a credit union, and he was very, very deliberative. And then my grandpa would say something to him, and there was always a pause. He'd say, "But what about this?" And then he'd go. It was like 3 beats before he talked every single time.
Dude, I generally don't have the confidence to do that. I don't know how to do that.
No.
If someone talks to me, I have to respond like immediately, like on a dime. Because like my brain's like, "Oh, we're being talked to. Say something."
Yeah.
It's like, but Gore Vidal has an extra step of like, "Oh, we're being talked to. Let's ingest it and come up with like a witty thing to say and like filter it through our whole brain and
I mean,
I can't do that at all."
Gore Vidal was one of those people who was pretty surface and witty, and he never deliberated much when he talked. I mean, he sometimes did for emphasis, where he'd be like, "Well, you're particularly chatty today," or something like that. I
love the deep breath, like that noise. People do that noise.
Like he had this air usually of being just exasperated with another person's lack of intelligence that was very effective on TV. Yeah,
I'm just saying, he sounds like the best kind of douche. I know. He's just an ass. Like
I know, man.
Pissing everybody off. Like that's his goal, is to make you mad and make you look dumb.
Yeah,
it's so fucking funny.
I mean, that's the difference, I think, between people who are compulsively social like myself and people who are real brooders and solitary artists. Were able to sit and just work on something alone for a long period of time. They really know what
they're about. They don't care about anything else. They don't care about their appearance or anything. Yeah.
Or they don't know what they're about, but they're so curious about it, and they're so preoccupied with the different sides. Like people who don't know what they think until they write about it.
Wow.
And they know they don't know what they think until they write about it. They don't have these.
God, that must be.
Yeah, they don't make snap decisions about what they believe.
No, it must be so cool to have your brain not be your biggest enemy. That would be
I know.
Good.
Yeah.
Good for them. Good for you, Gore.
Usually, those are the most fucked up people. Weirdly, I think people like that. Like, oh, it's amazing how
They're just
selfish.
in lockstep with. Yeah. That's awesome.
They end up being really selfish a lot of the time. I think like a lot of the best novelists were people like that, and they were just terrible, shitty people.
Oh yeah.
Like almost all of them.
Because they have no shame. They don't have any kind of guilt or anything. Yeah, they're just totally.
Yeah, but they were very adept at thinking deeply about the human experience without absorbing any of the moral lessons of their art.
Oh, that's weird.
It's odd.
Yeah.
Like Woody Allen always talking about. I mean, his subject basically is betrayal, and he's betrayed everyone he was with, basically.
Yeah, he doesn't have the best track record of people. I don't think.
But I think an extremely deep thinker.
Oh yeah, no, I mean he's probably the most prolific or artistic abusers. He's a very.
There's such a there's a real depth to his movies. Watching them is upsetting because there's like pedophile jokes in a lot of them. But, yeah, the trick is to watching them and absorbing the art without giving him any money.
Yeah, thankfully, like like the old ones, like Take the Money and Run. It's like I think it's like weird Woody. It's like this is still good Woody. Oh yeah, this is alright.
Well, I think the later stuff is better.
Dude, Sunrise Bakery, good one. That one ruled.
I do like his later work better.
Yeah.
But his funny stuff is it's fun. It's like Seth Rogen of the time.
He's the Seth Rogen. I think when Seth Rogen just suddenly became like super, like brooding and like, well, what if he became the next Gore Vidal, or he's just like some guy like lays out this whole argument to him on CNN, and like Seth is like interesting, and then he like throws back a whole argument.
Well, Gore Vidal said something about Woody Allen. He has something bitchy to say about everyone. He said, I liked Woody Allen's early funny films, but then someone took him to see an Ingrid Bergman picture, or an Ingmar Bergman picture.
It's just like you're hacking, pretty much. Like just the hack. That's so funny. Yeah, wait, so any last notes on Gore?
I have so much to say about it. Let's just stop and I'll pick up next time.
Yeah, okay, no, for sure.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, dude, that was a good Gore segment.
Yeah, it was a good run.
A good Gore.
What do you want to talk about?
Oh, I actually have some stuff on Saddam Hussein. Pretty weird. So, because I was reading this like insane. There's like really crazy articles. I've been like just hoarding them. But I saw. Okay, there's a one. It's basically like to summer. It was pretty much this crazy article. I'll post it or something where it's like this girl, like I think back in the 70s or 80s, like this this is pretty much when he was like peak dictatorship. Like he's very powerful at this time. Like he just took over Iraq pretty much. And then her dad was his chef, I guess. And then so they would just be hanging out, and Saddam would drop in on their house like Kramer. He would just come in. And then, like, he would literally come in, like, eat their food, like, they'd be having lunch, he'd, like, impose and, like, sit down at the table and, like, eat lunch with them. And they're all, like, scared, because, like, because back then, it's, like, you don't, if you have a job in, like, being a chef, you don't say anything, you just do your job, you, like, keep quiet. And, like, not very much information was coming in and out of Iraq. Yeah. So, like, there was nothing they could do. So it was like super scary. So he comes in and he's just like hanging out. And I guess there was like a really big food famine at that time because like.
I thought you were gonna say food fight.
No, not food fight, like a dictator food fight. No, but so there was a huge famine. But then so like they're all eating, and someone mentions the famine, and Saddam's like, "What? There's no famine." And they're like, "Oh shit, no, you're right. There's no famine at all. No, you're right." He's like, "Yeah, anyone in here can get food. You can always get food." But like in their mind, they know like the only food that they can get is like grapes and like bread because everything else is like embargoed. So they're like, yeah, for sure, man. No, oh, what was I saying about the famine? No.
It would be funny to write an essay called like "Food Fight!" Wars over food in whatever country.
Food fight. Yeah.
Food fight.
Oh, it's like super dark. Like,
super dark.
The Ukrainian famine.
The Ukrainian famine. Like, we have no grain, Stalin. Give me your grain. We don't have any. You are hiding it.
Dude, it was nuts though, because like everyone's like petrified around him. Like he's just one of those dictators where like I think he genuinely thought that he was on the right side of history. Yeah. So he thought he was doing everybody a favor, and then but then if people didn't think that, he would like kill them. So it's like really weird. Oh my god! Well, like his son killed somebody. Like I think his son killed like a butler or something.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Ah, shit! I gotta clean up after this kid." Like, and he like just gave him like a slap on the wrist.
Yeah. He was also one of his sons or both were like serial rapists. Too.
Yeah, no, they're insane. It really is like a Game of Thrones family where they just because they have unlimited power. They can do whatever they want. It's like it's horrible. Yeah, they have like all these cars and shit. It's like really scary. But what else? There was also he was really into Star Wars. Like he loved Star Wars. He screened Star Wars in his house privately.
Probably saw himself as Darth Vader. I heard.
Yes, he loved Darth Vader, and then he actually he was so into Darth Vader. He took Darth Vader's helmet, and then he had a whole platoon of his secret his personal bodyguard. Their uniforms looked like Darth Vader. So they had like Darth Vader helmets and like stormtrooper colors, and it was fucking nuts.
Shit. Yeah. He is Kylo Ren.
Yeah, no.
He just wanted to be Darth Vader so bad.
It's like he knew he was a villain, and he wanted to be. It was so crazy. Yeah, it was
funny.
Yeah. Oh my god, it was nuts, man. Yeah,
like in Goodfellas when they talk about Robert De Niro's character, he was the kind of guy who rooted for the bad guys in the movies. Yeah,
which is funny because now that's like the kind of thing that like the boring lady in the office says. Like I just watch the movies to root for the bad guys. Ha ha ha. But like if a dictator says that, then you really are in trouble. That's bad.
Isn't it disheartening when you're on dating apps and they just say, "Well, I like my dog in the office."
But also imagine Saddam Hussein saying that. So, it's like, there's like a 19-year-old white girl who's like, I just like dogs in the office, but like Saddam's like, I only like dogs, and I will only watch the office. And then if you change the channel, he like kills you or something. Yeah.
And everybody else will too.
And everybody, it's like all those innocent statements can get really blown out of like, oh, it's horrible. Yeah, it's just nuts, dude. Like, just the fact that he was like come in, like hang out, like just put his arm up, like, all right, what's going on today, folks? And they're like, famine. No, don't talk about the famine. Don't talk about the executions. What's new? Like, what's going on? Because you have to like lie to his face. And, it was the same with Gaddafi. Because like when he died, like when they killed him, he was like, "What are you killing me for? I thought I was like a guy."
What are you killing me for?
He was like, I was just trying to help.
How come you're killing me?
Yeah. He was like confused. It's like you really don't know what you were doing. He was like bombing his own people. It was like, oh, what are you doing? Dude, come on. All right, guys, just come on. I was doing my thing.
Because I hate you and I have all the power. That's how come. Now lay down and I'll...
This dictator mentality is nuts.
It
makes no sense.
Well, people in Iraq said that at some point said that they thought he could see their dreams.
Dude, yeah, because he was so, like, because they also had this insane, like, secret police apparatus. Yeah. Like, spies everywhere. Like, your own neighbor would, like, rat you out and shit. It was just nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
That's so crazy.
Oh my god.
I mean, just like, and he looked like Big Brother too.
He literally I think I swear if he was in enough to see Star Wars, he definitely read in 1984 and saw the cut. Was I should get a mustache.
Well, people talk about North Korea like that because it was founded in the same year 1984 came out, so like as people say. Like it's like they got a hold of the book and he's like, "Do you think we could do this?"
I feel like it's actually happened in history. Like people have really gotten the book and like, "Why don't we just do that what the book says?"
Yeah,
and just be really good. Yeah.
Looks like it'd work really good.
Well, because Big Brother's supposed to be Stalin, I think, right? Because he looks a lot like Stalin.
Yeah.
I think Stalin really set the tone for like dictators. He was like, "You gotta have a mustache. You gotta be kind of big, scary."
Well, I heard
and you gotta be all over the place.
Yeah, and I think Saddam Hussein like grew his mustache because of Stalin or something.
I think so.
But well,
especially all those bath party guys, they all have every bath party member is like fat and has a mustache. That's the main. Yeah, and they have like the comb over and shit.
Bath party sounds like an Elmo episode.
No, it really does.
Elmo's World episode.
It's Elmo. He like kills Bert and Ernie for being homosexual.
Yeah. He's got his rubber duckies.
Oh, dude. Sesame Street under Saddam's rule. Yeah, all the Sunnis are getting killed.
There's old Dana Carvey show sketch with the dictators in their tubs or something like that, and it's Robert Smigel actually, the genius writer behind like a lot of shows of that period. He's the guy behind the Triumph the Insult Comic God.
Yeah,
I mean, Comic Dog.
Comic God.
You said God and I said God. But he acts in it and he's brilliant. He's so brilliant. I don't know why he doesn't perform because that guy's amazing.
Oh man, no, yeah, it's just like very hard to like
Yeah.
Oh man.
He hates his face being out there, but he's so funny.
Triumph was the best.
Yeah.
Triumph.
Yeah, but he's such a good performer, as you see from the few sketches he was in. I don't know why he didn't do it more.
Maybe he's just fucking ugly.
No, well, I don't know. He may have been, but he has like a Larry David charm, but with a mustache.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Just like Saddam.
Mm-hmm.
So, no,
yes, Saddam, like Larry David said that the Larry David in the show is who he wished he could be. He wished he had the guts to say those things.
Oh yeah.
But Saddam just does.
That's the thing. When you're a dictator, you can just be.
Yeah.
Well, because we're talking about that whole thing. It's like kings and stuff, because they've been a king their whole life. They just have this weird license. They just have this confidence of like, I want this to happen, so it's gonna happen. Like, you're gonna do this now, and I'll just kill you if you don't. That's logical to them. That's nuts.
It's so stupid.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
It seems like the time of the dictator is kind of waning now. There's not that many dictators.
The year of the dictator.
The year,
like a Chinese year placemats.
Yeah.
The year of the dictator.
Year of the dictator.
I think it would be a really funny sketch to like restage Curb Your Enthusiasm situations, but with Saddam.
Oh yeah.
He's at the gelato place and there's somebody trying all the flavors.
Yeah.
He's like, do I have to try all the flavors?
Yes, get that one. Yes, it's very good. Get that one.
Get that one.
He's like, excuse me, he just shoots her, just kills her.
He just like snaps, and some guy dressed as Darth Vader blasts her away with a 12 gauge.
Just drag her off.
They just like squeegee her guts from that.
Oh man. What else? Also like people complain about like, that there's a lot of problems in the U.S. obviously, but I'm just so glad we don't live in like a complete like secret police, surveillance crazy ass state. Have you seen The Lives of Others? Like
that's
that kind
amazing.
of shit. Like, could you imagine being in that movie? Like if you're just trying to podcast like the Stasi agents like coughing in the wall. And
well, I keep telling people to watch that because I think it's so important.
No, people don't want to watch it because it looks boring, and Americans don't have the patience.
But it's so exciting.
I gotta say, Americans low patience and just low attention span annoys me.
Gore called them the United States of amnesia.
They really are. Yeah, it's stupid.
I actually don't like that quote so much, but
it is very emo. It's
it's just
you're all amnesia. You're all fishes, man.
It was later when he showed too much of his anger to be good.
He's like old George Carlin.
Yeah. I think George Carlin's. I think You Are All Diseased. One of his later ones is really funny.
Oh yeah.
I think it's so funny.
No, it's always a bad sign when like really crazy people on Facebook are like taking posting your quotes. Yeah, that's always bad.
Oh, speaking of George Carlin and Saddam Hussein, weirdly,
there's a link.
Yeah, kind of. Well, like George Carlin did a special called "I Kind of Like It When a Lot of People Die," which was recorded on September 9th and 10th, 2001. Oh. Yeah, so that got shut down real fast. He's like, no one can see this.
Yeah, you can't do
because
that.
Because 9/11 happened the day after they finished it. That's so crazy.
Well, it's actually an interesting fact. Like, that's the reason like a lot of rom-coms came out right after then, because it was like they just wanted to have feel-good movies. Like, let's not do anything serious right now.
Yeah, like the golden age of Katherine Heigl.
It must have been awesome if you're like Julia Roberts and like, oh man, my career is really in it. Oh no. Hey, all right. Yeah, this is pretty good.
It's like one of those memes where I can't remember. It's like nobody likes Julia, and then it shows a picture. I'm like, I don't know.
Oh man, but yeah, no. I think that was the two Saddam things, and then I had some hypothetical questions because I figured we should do like a role play.
Yeah.
So we can see how much time we got on there.
We got one bar.
Oh shit! Okay, we're almost at an hour. Okay, we'll just do one hypothetical.
No, let's do a couple.
A couple hypothetical. Yeah. Okay. Because we have some like hot takes.
We usually do an hour 20 or so.
Yeah, because we had like a list of hot takes. We promised we would. Okay. Well, here's one. How we would have colonized America better than Columbus. Oh my god. Well, violence is not the answer. Because we're thinking like, what if someone sent you to do it, but you didn't want to be like an asshole? I don't know.
Yeah.
Because what if like, okay, like you have to do something or else they're gonna kill you, right? Like, the Italy or Spain sends you over there, and you see the Native Americans, and you're like, no, like I don't want to kill these guys or enslave them.
Yeah.
What would I do?
I'm sure the only way to do it so that you weren't stepping on anybody, would be just to assimilate the Native Americans' way of life.
Right, like the only way to not genocide them is.
But also, if I don't know, do enough research back then, you find out that your diseases will probably spread to them, because for them it was the War of the Worlds, where these aliens came.
It literally was. It really is.
The aliens came. It was kind of
Wells
reversed. Yeah, the aliens came and spread disease instead of the other way around.
No, it really is like that scene in what's that Mel Gibson movie, Apocalypta, when like at the very end they're like they just got done fighting, all this shit happened, and then they look at the horizon, it's like a big ass ship on the horizon. They're like, what's that?
I haven't seen it.
Oh, that's such a good
Shit, I was so excited.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, but then it really is the H.G. Wells thing where it's like what is this ship over there? And it's just like there's just little stinky lines coming off it.
Stinky lines. That's so funny. That's so funny. Yeah. It's leaving just all this trash, like wrappers and shit in its wake. And
that's the whole thing. Also, like you couldn't have been a good, like even if you were a good colonizer, like, if you just tried to like not leave any footprints, just take back some corn, then someone else would just come in and do it.
Yeah.
It sucks. Like there's no way you could have stopped it. I don't think. It's fucked up. I don't know. Like
it's so fucked up.
It's horrible. Yeah. Like I think I spent too much time trying to think of like how mankind could have avoided tragedies. Because I don't know how you could have avoided. Like,
nope.
Someone was gonna go kill everybody in South America. Like,
I mean, we were gonna get there. We were gonna explore and get there, and then the diseases would have been spread.
That's
like even
thing.
if we were completely peaceful. Like just so many people would have died.
Like it's super people. Not one shot is fired.
Oh.
We're all hanging out. It's Native Americans and Spaniards like dancing together. It's like the best time. And then they all start coughing and dying. Like oh no, oh no. It's the Curb music starts playing. Like, Dude, I would have felt so guilty if you like accidentally contaminated all like everybody on the continent. Oh my god.
Shit.
Oh, that'd be horrible.
Oh my god, yeah. I mean, I get this isn't very funny, but I think about just like these huge disasters and things like that. Think of just what would their progenies have done for the world? Could we have solved this and this? No. It's so depressing.
It's very funny, like the alien in War of the Worlds. It's like, oops, oh no, he like keeps like knocking over, like killing people.
Yeah. Well, I think that's that. It's just you know we never would have. There wouldn't have been a way we wouldn't have killed millions of people.
Oh man.
Or not. I don't know how many there were. I'm bad with numbers.
What if like instead of Europeans going over there, like another people, but then they would have still gotten sick. Like if China had gotten there, because everyone talks about how like China was sending people there too. Like what if they had colonized?
Yeah.
It would have been the same thing. It would have all died, and they would have probably killed everyone. Because back then everybody was evil and just wanted money and gold. And there was no humanitarians.
Yeah, that's all it was. It's just the queen being like, "Go there. I heard there's gold." And Queen Isabella or whatever.
Well, especially because like once people got there, then other empires were like, "Oh shit, we gotta go there. Go over there. Go get some land."
And then the Dutch came late. They're like, "Guys."
Yeah, and they're like, "Is there any room for us?" Like I don't know. There's like New England.
For us? Yeah. I have a merchantman.
Yeah, it's like
I could stand one.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh, you guys! Oh, this is a big party."
Yeah. Oh, there are lots of you here.
There are lots of you.
Oh, Spain is taking up lots of room.
Oh, Spain. Like, oh, I like these treasure fleets. Wish I had some privateers like England.
Dude, someone told me that Spain literally, there's still inflation in Spain because of how much gold they brought over.
Oh, fuck.
And they also dropped so much gold in the ocean on the way over. There's like shitloads of gold.
Dude, if you play Sid Meier's Pirates, you understand how
Oh,
much gold there was.
Those Spaniard missions.
Yeah.
Personally, I always play as the British, but or French. But,
I always side with Spain because they mistreat you, and then I pretend that I'm angry at them the whole way, and I'm like, Spanish.
Yeah.
And then I take all their gold and kill them.
Yeah. Very good game, Sid Meier's Pirates.
Play it.
Yeah.
Download it on Steam. Play it right now.
It's like $2. You can get it. Yeah.
It's brilliant.
Oh, man. No,
don't get it on mobile. They fuck it up.
Oh yeah, it's so old. They can't do that on mobile.
Well, they changed the mini games on mobile, so and they really suck.
No, because it had the best mini game where you had to like square dance with like that was the hardest one, and then the sword fight was kind of easy because you could a little bit. Yeah,
the sword fights are the same, I think, but they don't have that cool chessboard when you attack a town. That's the best part.
That was the best.
That's the best part.
Yeah.
What was the next hypothetical?
Oh, okay. Let's see. Trying to get into a prophet's entourage.
Oh, maybe we should save it. We're at no bars.
Oh shit. Okay. You know what? We'll okay. Next episode will be all hypotheticals, and I'll actually read a book, and we'll have shit to do. So okay. Well,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
I hope you guys learned about Gore Vidal and Saddam.
Yeah.
And, don't think we're bad people just because we, talk this,
Just because we like Saddam.
We're simply digging. Yeah, we're just asking the questions that everybody else is too afraid to ask.
We wouldn't invite him to our birthday. He's just cool.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But yeah. I wouldn't. He'd be an interesting guest, even if I
He
didn't like
would.
him. I would invite him
Yeah,
anyway.
he'd probably just hijack every conversation.
It's sort of like when you invite your friend, but his ex is also going to be there. Hey man, I know he's going to be there. Is that going to be weird?
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, it's going to be weird. It's going to be very weird.
Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, have a happy end of the year.
Mm.
If we're all in a concentration camp next time, we'll know.
Then
So,
sorry.
Yeah, sorry. It ends here.
Yeah.
So.
If you're in a concentration camp, it's like her. If you ever get to the concentration camp, come find me. All right.
Oh.
Well, that's that happened.
All right, that's a good time.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's that happened. Thank you for
All right, that's
listening.
that. That's that. See ya.